You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Imagine you find a movie that you love to watch. And you watch this movie incessantly. And this is in the days of VHS, and you've worn out 2 copies. Now imagine that 20-something years later, you start a podcast. And through several twists of fate, you end up not only landing an interview with one of the actors from that movie, but you pick up another actor from that movie the night before the interview you scheduled with the first actor. And not only that, but you get to have dinner with the director and the other members of the cast that came by, and spend a whole weekend with this first actor that you had your connection with, because you arranged for him to stay at your friend's farm. That's what happened with me, with Patrick Gorman and Bo Brinkman, who were in the movie Gettysburg. Patrick Gorman played General Hood. Bo Brinkman played Major Walter Taylor, who has an affinity for flapjacks in small mountains. And this was, maybe 6 months, a little less, 4 months or so after I moved back to Gettysburg. And I had sent Patrick Gorman a message on Facebook, and I said, hey, I moved back to Gettysburg. If you ever find yourself back here for any reason, let me know. I'd love to interview you. And he said, well, funny you should ask. And he said that they'd be out in October and everything, and he's just looking for a hotel or something. I said, well, let me see what I can do. And I talked to a friend of mine, and I said, listen, I got this crazy idea. I know it sounds crazy, but just hear me out, and don't feel bad if you say no. And I told her, I said, listen, this guy's in the movie. He said he'd let me interview him. And I said, can you give him a room in your house? And she's like, yeah, that sounds like fun. So that's how that worked. And so I kind of was like Patrick's chauffeur the whole weekend. I took him wherever he needed to go. He got me into all the things he had to go to. It was a very surreal experience for me. And it still is surreal because I'm still in touch with him. Bo has been in town for a couple months, and we've been hanging out a lot and have a lot of fun together. And it is strange. It is strange because you see these people in their characters, and they almost aren't real. And then when you see the real, and they're just regular people, and that's their job, like, someone's a teacher or someone works at McDonald's or whatever it is that they do, it's their job. And they're just regular people with regular lives and families and all the same problems that we all have. Maybe a little more because they're in Hollywood, and it seems that Hollywood's full of some pretty messed up people. So I don't know, whatever. Anyway, the point is this. Over on Patreon, we have an interview with Patrick and Bo. And I thought some of you out there might enjoy listening to this because the Bo Brinkman episode of Ask a Gettysburg Guide, or Ask a Gettysburg Actor as we renamed it, has gotten a lot of downloads. Got a lot of downloads rather quickly. And I think like in a week, it surpassed what it usually takes a month for an episode to accumulate. Anyway, as far as downloads go, what's my point? My point is, this is the interview. This is it. We sat in the summer kitchen at my friend's farm. It was a beautiful fall day, nice and warm with a little bit of a cool breeze, bright and sunny. And we just sat down and we talked to Patrick and Bo about the movie biz, and particularly Gettysburg. And so here it is from our Patreon feed. We hope that we see you over there, and we hope that it makes your holidays bright. Here's Patrick Gorman and Bo Brinkman talking about Gettysburg.
Hi, this is Bo Brinkman. I played Major Walter Taylor in the movie Gettysburg.
Hello, folks. It's Patrick Gorman, also known as General Hood from the film Gettysburg and Gods and Generals. And you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg. I'm glad you're listening. Thank you.
Intro after we're done.
Okay.
It'll be like, hey, but yeah, go ahead. So, the extended version has more of you talking with Lee, I think, is probably the longest scene that it's got with you, right?
I don't remember anymore, but the script, it's like in filmmaking, the movie you shoot is not the movie you wrote, and the movie that you shot is not the movie that you edit.
Right.
When I got the script, my role was a lot bigger. I mean, it was really big. By the time I got to Gettysburg, they'd already cut a lot of stuff because I think the suits were saying, hey, it's a huge script here.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, by the time we shot everything, I think Ron had a 6-hour movie. So, and so they were like, we can't do this. We have to. So they had to cut it down again. So
and
that happens. That's normal for a film.
Yeah.
It really is.
No matter how long the film is, that's normal.
Right. It's normal. It's like you never shoot the movie you write.
You mentioned your character for the people listening. You played Major Taylor, Walter Taylor. And there would be, I would imagine, that a lot of scenes with him because Lee didn't have a very large staff. He had a few guys. Maybe a dozen at the most, I think.
Well, I mean, in the film, it was like me and
two guys.
Tim Ruddy, who was played Marshall.
Right.
Yeah. But I think he had a couple of other ones, but not a lot.
Mm-mm.
Meade, on the other hand, had like an army of his own as his staff,
Right.
But
it's the U.S. Army for you, right?
Yeah. So it makes sense that there would be more scenes with you in there for that. Now, we're here with Patrick Gorman and Bo Brinkman. Bo, we're talking about
and that dog.
And that pain in the ass dog barking outside.
We can go send a courier out to
shoot it.
The dog or something.
Yeah.
No, we love dogs.
We do love dogs.
They're sweet.
Except for when they bark in the middle of a podcast. But anyway, so how did you get the role for Taylor?
Well, actually, I was at Cannes Film Festival, and I met Ron Maxwell at Cannes, and I was at the Carlton, and I had a little run-in with some British guy that was sitting on my rented Porsche, and so he was laughing about it because we were like kind of fighting over. He was standing on the other side of the fence, this little gate, and we were at a table, and so he was laughing about me being kind of a redneck towards this guy, and he waved me over the table, and he said, you remind me of an actor that I had in my movie, Dennis Quaid, in The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia. And I went, oh my God, I remember that movie. I love that film. And actually Dennis Quaid is my cousin.
Right.
He goes, the similarity is amazing. So he said, sit down. So we started talking. And then we went out for drinks somewhere else. And he's like, I want you to play a role in my film. I'm like, really? Yeah, give me a script. You hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Right? And I read the script. I'm like, wow, I really want to be a part of this. And we both lived in New York City at the time. And so originally I really wanted to play Stephen Lang's role. Pickett. And he was agreeable to that. And then when we got close to production, he called me and he said, you know what, I think Walter Taylor really fits you well. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. He does. I like that role too. I said, I just have to play the South. Anything on the South side.
Because you're from Texas.
I'm from Texas, right. And my family would never forgive me for playing on the other side.
Yeah.
But and so and then when I met, I already knew Stephen Lang, and when he told me that Stephen Lang was going to play the role, I was like, absolutely, hands down, he's perfect.
Yeah.
So, and by this time, let's see, I think we had, by the time we did Gettysburg, we had both moved to Los Angeles, and Ron moved into my neighborhood. He lived right down the street from me in this equestrian neighborhood outside of L.A. So, I talked to him every day, and we talked about casting, and to watch the cast come together was so exciting. The biggest problem I had with the casting, believe it or not, now I don't mind saying this because I love the guy, but it was, I just lost his name, Jeff Daniels.
Okay.
And I'd only known Jeff to do like comedies and stuff like that. And he said, TNT, or I don't know who it was, the studio wants Jeff Daniels to play Chamberlain. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh, I think that would be a huge mistake.
Really?
Yeah. And
because you knew him from Dumb and Dumber and things like, was he?
Well,
no, that was later, wasn't it? Yeah,
that was after. But
so what comedies was he in before Gettysburg?
Well, he was. What I remembered him from was this movie that he did with
Woody Allen.
Was it? No, it was before. Was it Woody Allen movie before then?
I think. I can't remember. That's how I remember him.
I remember him in Something Wild.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah.
That's before
my time. And he
my
was this
time.
dweebish guy. And I was like, golly, I mean, really, to play, Chamberlain, And Ron was like, you know what, I'm gonna go up to Michigan and read him. And he went up and he came back and he's like, Bo, he is dead on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? I don't get that. I mean, I saw him on stage years before in the 5th of July, that Lanford Wilson play.
Okay.
And he played a gay guy, and it's a great play. Jeff had a lifelong relationship with Lanford Wilson. Lanford actually cast him off the stage at his university, and the guy ends up at the Circle Rep, and never looked back. I mean, that was
Circle Rep in New York.
Circle Rep in New York City was like the place to be, in the 80s, in the early 80s.
Was that an agency?
No. It was a theater company.
Oh, a theater company.
That
okay.
Lanford Wilson was artistic director of. I believe it was Lanford, or he was the playwright in residence there. Yeah. And at the time, Lanford Wilson was the hot playwright during that time. So I mean, Jeff was cast literally right off of his university theater stage, into Circle Rep, and never looked back.
And the rest is history.
And he's a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy has such range. And, he's the one that really, he got most of the accolades for this film. And he just did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I think he did a great job as Chamberlain. He's one of my favorite characters out of the battle, if you will.
Yeah.
In real life, the real guy.
Yeah.
And I think he did a fine job doing him.
I thought he should get an Academy Award nomination for waking up in the tent. He did the best waking up guy ever.
Come closer to the mic and talk about that. So, yeah, he wakes up in the tent. It's the first time we meet him.
Yeah, in the film. And I thought, I'm a member of the Motion Picture Academy, and I thought, this guy has got to get a nomination for the performance and all, but that waking up scene, I remember first time seeing it, I said, that's perfect. That's the way we wake up sometimes. He just that's a minor thing.
No, but
give a guy an Academy Award for.
When I first saw that movie, I was in high school. And it was in military history class, and our teacher was a reenactor in the movie, and so he would pause it every time he was in the shot, right?
Yeah.
So it took us about 6 weeks to watch a 4-hour movie because of all that.
Or one scene, come on.
But he, so we watched it, and I remember thinking kind of the same thing at 17 years old. It's like that's exactly how I wake up. It was you're right, and I'm not just saying this because you just said this. I do remember thinking, and every time I've watched it since then, that is the best way to wake up in a movie.
He was wonderful in that role.
Now, so both of you guys play Confederates.
Yes.
And I did invite Brian Mallon last night so that we'd have a somewhat balanced ticket here, but he said he had something to do. So. I love the story about how you got the role of General Hood. So would you tell us that story?
Well, yes. I was going through, I started out as an actor, as I told you, at the age of 4. Not as a pro, but I did. Anyway.
Geppetto. You were Geppetto.
I was Geppetto in a children's production of Pinocchio at the age of 4, standing on stage. And we had dialogue. We did the whole thing in a brief version. We was singing, dancing, tap dancing, and we had music in a big theater. And I remember standing on stage and the lights hitting me in the eyes, and I couldn't see the audience, but I could tell that they were waiting for me to do something. And that's really when I knew I wanted to be an actor. Anyway,
power.
So, what was the question? We're talking about
how you got the role.
Yes, how I got the role.
The story of how you got the role.
I was going through a very bad time as an actor. I hadn't worked for like a year. And my wife of the time says, you're just not getting out there enough, and your agent's not, you've got to do something. So that morning I opened the trade pages, and there was a picture of Robert Duvall, and he's going to do this film called Killer Angels about the Civil War. And I said, excuse me, an expletive, and said, there's got to be something for me in that. I said, Sheridan. At the time I had shaved my head, and I had a scruffy little beard, and I kind of looked a little bit like Sheridan. I said, I could play Sheridan, even though I was too tall for Sheridan. And my agent wouldn't do anything. So I was working as a messenger.
Okay.
So I got in my messenger uniform. I found out where the production office was. I took my picture in, and I delivered it as if it was coming from an agency. And I got an audition.
There you go. Fortune favors the bold.
Yeah, well, I wanted to read for Armitage.
Right.
Armistead.
Yeah. Armistead. God, don't take me anywhere. And because I loved the role. I did, in the meantime, before I got the audition, read Killer Angels. I loved it. That's what I wanted to play. But they wanted me for Hood. So, great. It was a good part. I auditioned. I got it. Later on, the casting director said to me, when we saw your picture, we just prayed that you could act because we didn't have anybody else who came close. Now, Hood was much taller. He was over 6 feet tall,
right.
Broad shoulders. I'm barely 5'10", and skinny shoulders, but I did have something of the look about it. And so that's how. But it was great.
Hey, you put the uniform on, you gain 10 pounds.
Yeah,
that's very true.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, what's funny to me is that every time I read, because I'm studying to become a guide here at the battlefield.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
So every time I'm reading about any of these people, I have to actually look their pictures up to get the right picture in mind, because it's you guys that I see whenever I'm reading about any of these people.
Wow.
And I mean, they did a really good job of getting people that look pretty close to the real.
It was hard.
Give or take,
it was hard.
give or take a couple.
I think Martin Sheen. I love Martin Sheen's. I think I told you why I like that. But Duvall is what drew me to it, because he was like my favorite actor, and I wanted to work with him.
Right.
And he really, to me, looked like.
Oh,
He was the look. So I thought, for the performance of Martin Sheen, we should have had Duvall's face. And I loved his interpretation. As I said, I felt that Martin captured the fragility of Lee at that time, because apparently Lee had
He'd been
either a stroke or something, and he was not 100%. And I think Martin really, he got the authority and everything, but I love that about
and
his
I've heard about that performance. I've heard people go, I don't like how he played Lee, because he was kind of vague and like kind of spacey. And and I was like, yeah, no kidding. Absolutely he was. He was actually playing the character during that period of Gettysburg.
When he was
ill.
Yeah, exactly.
He had, and this isn't to make, to belittle the whole thing, but he did have a bad case of diarrhea during the battle.
Well, you name it, he probably had it.
Well, right. And then there was like angina that he was developing, and there was a lot of stuff. And he was like 56, I think. Yeah. And he was an old man. And you're on a horse all day, all this stuff. Like,
He's like,
no,
God, old man.
I mean, for the time, For the time, he was an
For
old
the old man, he was.
Well, there again.
Not now, right, Jonathan?
When you have an iconic character of American history, Robert E. Lee. I mean, my father was named James Lee Gorman after Robert E. Lee. I mean, so that's, everybody, like Martin Sheen told me personally when I first met him, and he says, I didn't have much time for prep, but I read every book I could.
Yeah, I remember.
He says, I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't, because everyone who's a Civil War fan has their impression of what Lee was and should be and what, all that. He says, I can't win.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I mean, he wasn't bummed about it. It was just a fact.
Yeah.
And it is a fact. Everyone, especially if you're from the South. So I'm kind of lucky because I had ancestors in the South and the North. So I can go either way.
Right.
So that was a problem. But, I think he was marvelous in it. They were both.
He did a wonderful job.
Yeah, I think Martin Sheen, to me, gets Michael Shara's Lee down. Right? And I think Duvall might have more of a mix of Jeff Shara's Lee and the real Lee.
The only way we'd know is to have Duvall play the role in Gettysburg.
That's right.
Yeah, we'd have to redo it. Yeah, or just have them both sit here and we'll hash it out. See if you can get them on for me.
Lee versus Lee.
Now that would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
Friday night fights, Lee versus Lee. So when you get the part, how long does it take you to, is there a lot of stuff about Walter Taylor out there, or did he leave a diary, or how did you research?
He wrote a book called My 4 Years with Lee.
Okay.
Oh, neat.
And the guy had an amazing life. He died in, I think, 1917. He went on to be very successful. He was like the Virginia Railroad Commissioner, if I'm not mistaken, or the Highway Commissioner. He was an amazing guy. But he kept the books for the whole Confederate Army.
Okay.
So he knew all the statistics. He knew all the casualties of all the war and recorded them. He, from provisions to casualties to you name it, he kept a record of everything. So after the war, he would come in the summers. He spent summers here and
here.
Yeah.
He would come up here.
Yeah, and would give
lectures,
tours and lectures and stuff.
No, he didn't. He didn't do any tours. I'm sure he didn't do that.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know. I mean, it's 25 years since I researched it.
Yeah.
But he had an amazing life.
Yeah.
And that the picture, that real famous picture of Lee. It's when he escorted Lee back to where Lee was going to live. And the picture of him sitting in the wingback chair with the two men behind him. Yeah. One is Walter Taylor, the other is his son.
Yeah.
And Lee loved Walter Taylor. I mean, he regarded him as one of his sons. I mean, they were incredibly close. They had a very close relationship up to the time.
As demonstrated by you putting the blanket on Martin Sheen in the middle of the July heat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I know. If you really think about it, but he was sick.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
the reason why I put a blanket on him
sure.
is because he was ill, and it was.
And he wasn't going to go to bed, and he's going to sleep there.
Sleep in the chair.
You did the right. No, that's great.
Yeah.
So it's right. It was really hot outside. He was ill,
God,
and that was to convey, subconsciously that because we never in the movie came out and said he's sick.
Right.
He's ill.
Right.
He's this. He's that.
No.
So we had to do it in
that's what was so good about his performance.
in little things, to show that he wasn't 100%.
There are times where he just kind of goes like he's exasperated.
Yeah.
And it's just you would be that way if you were in top health and you're in that circumstance, but you're old and unhealthy.
Right.
I beg your pardon.
But it's also not part of the history. It's not the story that's told.
Right.
But it's like on the fringes.
You got to be a nerd to know
so
that he was sick.
It's brilliant to incorporate it.
True, and I think that Marty had the toughest job on in the movie. He really did, because for an actor to have this underlying illness, a lot of times is misread
as lack of energy.
Lack of energy, or being, like I've heard, spaced out, or, he's this spaced out guy, playing Lee, like you said, not the image of people that have, that non-historians don't know that Lee was ill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so just like a doddering old granddad, like but he's...
So, and a lot of people took offense to it. Like, he's treating Lee like he's, this old doddering old man, kind of thing.
Like he should have rode in a battle like bare-chested on the back of his horse.
I am Spartacus.
On a bear like Putin.
Yeah, on a bear like Putin. There you go.
So you guys both portray these characters in a movie that is about 3 days of their lives. Well, 2 for Hood because he gets knocked out in the. But you read, like, does it help to know what led them up to, like, what happened to them before these 3 days, and maybe even what they're going to go on to do in the rest of their lives when you're portraying them in that tiny little window of time?
Right.
Does that other stuff help you?
Not the future, but certainly the past. Yeah. That builds up to that day.
Yeah.
Because you don't, you play I always try to, infuse the moment before in my acting, always play the moment before, it gives you substance, to work with. So I just did a lot of research, and just fell in love with the whole history of the Civil War, which before then I didn't know a whole lot, but reading Killer Angels certainly got me, enthused.
And that's a novel, even though it's historical. It's like you're saying, you can't play all the backstory, as it were, but it does feed you nevertheless. It gives you texture and
gives you texture
and things
layers
that you play underneath that gives what you do weight,
right? As
opposed to people who are non-actors who are just dressed up and don't have anything going on behind. Well, that's what we do. That's our craft. Whatever kind of actor and however you go about it, that's it.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, you're not doing it.
Right.
It's not about just saying lines.
No.
Right.
No. God.
So what was your favorite out of the 2 movies, Gods and Generals and Gettysburg? Which one was the better time making?
Gettysburg.
100%. Why is that?
Well, for one thing, we were in one location the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So we were in Gettysburg, the town of Gettysburg, which welcomed us with open arms.
Sure.
The people were amazing. We made a lot of friends. We had our own little bars that we hit that we took over every night, And there was
every Friday night it was the Officers Club, Confederate Officers.
Right.
Yeah,
the Farnsworth House.
Man, I'm telling you, it was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, the locals that were here at the time, they have stories. They tell about how fun it was and hanging out with everybody, and
it was just such a wonderful time. And we made a lot of lifelong friends. I mean, so that was that time, and you can never, lightning never strikes twice.
Yeah.
Gods and Generals, we moved around a lot. We shot in Maryland. We shot in Virginia. We shot, up at VMI. We shot
in West Virginia, too.
West Virginia. I mean, we were all over the place, and it was a much bigger film. We were, burning about $650,000 a day.
Jesus.
We had a bigger cast. We had more reenactors. It was like a mini city,
Yeah.
And then to make those company moves, it was a nightmare. I mean, we didn't make company moves that were a few miles away. We made company moves that was in another state.
But why though? Because couldn't you shoot it all those places? Couldn't they just be shot? Because it's all basically the same region.
I don't know. I don't know.
But you got to travel. You can't shoot it all in one
you just
place.
gotta?
No,
impossible.
Not one location. I don't mean let's shoot the whole movie on this farm, but you can do it all in, say, Maryland, because all of the terrain that you're going to need for Manassas and Antietam and
that's true. Except we were in Fredericksburg. We recreated that whole scene where we come in through Fredericksburg in the snow.
Now, was that actually Fredericksburg or was that Harper's Ferry?
I'm sorry,
Harper's Ferry, right.
Harper's Ferry.
So that was West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Where did you shoot the battle scenes for Fredericksburg, or was that a lot of computers?
No. We shot it outside of Harper's Ferry, I think. I don't remember. Right. It was like, I'm telling you, we were all over the place. So that was a problem.
So it's harder to plant roots and get comfortable. To plant roots.
And, plus,
yeah.
Gettysburg is such a special place. And, Hagerstown is just not. So there was that. The other thing, then this is an interesting thing, and speaking of youth and speaking of different generation. Now, in 1992, it was a different time. Mm-hmm. Here I am coming out of the 80s, right? So all the actors at the time were hard drinking. We're like, Tom Berenger would stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning, drinking whiskey and, getting up 3 hours later to go to work. And so there was just all these actor guys. They were a lot of fun to hang out with. It was a big drinking party every day after work. Well, I come back thinking, this is going to be fun. It's going to be like Gettysburg. It was nothing like Gettysburg. First of all the actors were 10 years younger than me, right?
Right.
None of them drank. Then I'd go, hey, you want to go have a cocktail? Like, no, you know what? I'm reading a novel right now, and I have to get up at 4 because, I have to run. I run 5 miles before work every day. Yeah. And I'm like, what? And they're like, oh, yeah, I got to work out. And if I have a drink, I'm not going to feel like working out. So, maybe over the weekend. I'm like, oh, okay, dude, have fun with that. So I had, it was just different.
Right.
These kids, 10 years younger than me, that grew up differently, and they just weren't like...
They weren't party animals.
They just were out of a different era,
Yeah.
And they all had girlfriends, and, they were like all getting married. So they were starting their lives,
They were shackling themselves.
Yeah. I was like, golly, this sucks, But, it was very different. And then, Tom Berenger did not make it onto the into the show, and I was really bummed about that.
Into Gods and Generals.
Yeah. He's been a lifelong friend of mine now, but oddly enough, because he passed on the show, my ex-wife's husband got in, Bruce Boxleitner. So I had a awesome.
Who's a good friend of mine.
I love Bruce. Yeah. So we were both good friends with him, and he's a dear friend, and now we have a common enemy because he's no longer married to her either. So, we get together and we're like, So, Bruce did a great job, and we got to spend many months together, and I got a quick funny story about Bruce. We were at this farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, and we weren't getting cell. We couldn't even get cell, right? Mm-hmm. And so Bruce kept coming up to me going, does your cell phone work? I'm like, no, man. We did a 24-hour shoot there because we were going to lose the location. So we were literally there for 24 hours. And so everybody's exhausted. We're in a 15 personnel van, and it's like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and everybody's like asleep. And all of a sudden I get this phone call. And I'm like, hello. Hey, hold on a second. Don't yell at me. Don't yell at me. I am not married to you anymore. Do not yell at me. And everybody kind of like raises up a little bit, and I go, hold on. Bruce, your wife is on the phone. Nobody knew. And everybody like in unison in the band goes, what? And I'm like, he's got her now. I'm not married to her. He was like going, whoa, our cell phone. I'm sorry, honey. Where have you been? She was yelling at me because she thought that I'd taken him out and done something wrong.
The local,
it's hilarious.
So you and Bruce were friends before the marriages?
Oddly enough,
or because of the marriages?
No, oddly enough, I went to when Bruce Boxleitner was on a TV show. I forget which. My drama teacher in Houston, Cecil Pickett's daughter was an actress, Cindy Pickett, and she was friends with Bruce Boxleitner. Okay. So Cindy calls me out of the blue and says, "Hey, there's a party at Bruce Boxleitner's house at Hidden Hills. Why don't you come?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love to." So I went, and I ended up doing shots with Bruce all night. We really hit it off, and on the way out of the neighborhood, it's a gated equestrian neighborhood. I told my girlfriend, I said, I love this place. It was all, horse fence and ranch style homes on an acre, and manicured horse trails. And I was like, I'm going to live here someday. And so 10 years later, I was living in his neighborhood.
Nice.
And
so you're neighbors now.
We were neighbors, and and then when I got a divorce, she started dating. My ex-wife started dating him. So.
And that wasn't weird at all?
I didn't know him. I didn't know. Well, no, I mean, I didn't. I moved out of the neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
And
but he was a friend of yours.
Well, he wasn't a friend. We knew each other.
Okay.
We knew who each other. We had hung out and done shots together at his party, and I remembered him and he remembered me, but we weren't running around or anything.
It's like how Eric Clapton and George Harrison called each other husbands-in-law.
Yeah.
Right? Like they stayed friends even though the whole thing with the wife.
Well, they were really good friends though.
Yeah, they were like best friends.
Yeah, and they were really tight.
She was the trollop.
Yes, she was the trollop.
We're talking about Patty Boyd, not yeah. All right, so Patrick, what's the answer for you? Gods and Generals or Gettysburg?
Well, in Gods and Generals, I had one scene with Stephen, with Pickett, and I was in a couple of other scenes, so I didn't have a very big presence.
Right.
And I was in and out. For me, but the thing for me, Gettysburg, there again, is about the Battle of Gettysburg, but it's really about the relationship of those generals. And it's successful as a film.
Yeah.
Gods and Generals, in my opinion, even always should have been a series.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing of John Wilkes Booth that they shot was great. But that didn't even appear in the movie.
So sad.
Extended version on Amazon. It's there now, yeah.
But the thing is, it wasn't successful in the business world of movies, partly because of that.
It felt like it was trying to squeeze too much into.
Well, they were.
Yeah.
And it didn't work.
Right.
And so that was my take on it, not because I didn't have much to do with it, but it was certainly fun. But the thing about that, too, when I came into it was the morning that I arrived at the day before 9/11, and I was getting ready to go to the set for the first day. A friend of mine was a SWAT commander in L.A. He was doing anti-terrorist training at the Pentagon, called me, and he was going to visit us on the set, and I was going to show him how movies are made. And he says, you have your television on? And I said, no. He says, turn it on. This is the truth. I turned the television on, came up, picture of the second plane hitting the tower.
Yeah.
And that was the day that Brian Mallon,
his brother,
he was going to do, he had his big scene to do, and he sees this plane, and he had just gotten his brother a job in the 82nd floor of the tower. So he thought his brother is dead.
Yeah, sure. Who wouldn't?
As it turned out, later in the day, he got a call from his brother. What happened is that...
Amazing story.
Yeah, he's working on this floor, and he's from Ireland, where they don't have buildings taller than 4
Right,
yeah.
And he said, when it hit, he just said, I got to get down to ground.
When it hit,
the first plane
hit in the other tower.
Right.
Yeah.
And they told everybody to
it's okay.
go back.
It's just a freak
to go
accident.
back. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to go down.
Yeah.
I don't feel good. I'm going to go downstairs. I'll see you guys in a minute. Everybody else died.
Yeah.
He's
When
the only
he
survivor.
got to, one of the secretaries kind of went with him. He says, I'm going to go with you. He said when they hit the ground floor is when the other
plane
and he
hit.
ran, I don't know, 12, 13 blocks.
Yeah. I'd run 12 or 13 miles.
But anyway, shooting, that day was, they did
Surreal.
shoot some things, but then they shut down.
Yeah.
And I had a good experience there, but that was the start of it. For me, of course, I prefer Gettysburg. I had more to do,
Right.
Yeah. Ego, I had more to do.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience. But as you're saying, it's totally different. Totally different.
It almost kind of, when you watch the two, Gettysburg kind of feels like the way you're describing it, like the behind the scenes stuff that we don't see.
Yeah.
Like it feels like you guys were all here.
Well,
on the same wavelength and everything, and
a big point of that, I think, was Tom Berenger, he really bring the Confederates together. I remember at the first reading, I didn't know any of these actors. I'd never worked with any of them before, and while we were doing that place out where we were doing the reading of the script, I noticed that in the breaks, Tom was bringing out these boxes and everything, and he started giving out swords to his staff. Yeah. And I thought to myself, oh, honey, you went to props and got these things. No, he'd gone out on his own dime and bought, and they were all different.
Oh, that's cool.
They were all historically correct.
Well, mine had a real 1862 blade.
Really?
And it was engraved with, not the real, but from General Longstreet to General Hood in the Army of Northern Virginia. It was a reproduction hilt. But, I mean, come on, that's the best. Oh, it's a fantastic.
Yeah,
it was a way to, I never used it in the film.
You still have it?
I still have it.
Of course.
Don't give that one away.
Yeah, you don't give that
John's not getting his mitts on that one.
I gave him my spurs, and that's the end of it. But no. So to answer your question, they're different. Even though I certainly would rate Gettysburg better, and for my own experience, because it had more to do with that.
Do you guys? I mean, you've done other things, but is Gettysburg the thing that's kind of got you the most attention or following, or what's like the thing that people remember you for the most?
Gettysburg for me, because
that's the best role I've ever had in a film.
Yeah.
Fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to put that. But
why would that be? Unfortunately, it's
well, you hope that that's going to turn you into
the next
Stephen Lang, or it's going to push you into stardom. But there's no formula for that,
right?
I mean, you're in this business hopefully because you love the craft and you love to practice that, and fame and fortune comes or it doesn't. There's no there's no formula.
It also comes
for that.
and goes.
Yeah, and it comes and goes exactly.
Yeah.
So having been in the business for so many years, I've worked with famous people my whole adult life, and I've seen that, like you were saying, come and go.
Absolutely.
And it's actually, you want to be a star, but it's a hard life in a way. Mm-hmm. It's very unreal in a sense, and I think amongst the celebrities, there's only a few amount that really adjust to that in a quote-unquote sane way. It's not that they're insane, but it's a crazy life.
But so, I mean, we were walking around yesterday, and people recognized you as we were going through different areas and stuff, right? and I asked you, I said, do you like that when people do it? And you said, yeah, because it does.
Sure, it's fun.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like I said, among the Civil War reenactors, I'm kind of a quote-unquote celebrity. but you have to go to pains and say, well, I don't live in Beverly Hills. I don't have a swimming pool. And I'm not famous.
But they don't care.
They don't care.
We don't care.
I'm not putting you down. And thank you very much for recognizing me. And I love it. It's fun.
Yeah.
But I remember the first reenactment that I was invited to after the film was released. The only reason I went was because all the rest of the actors were employed, and I wasn't employed. So I went. It was great. It was an honor. But I would go into the porta potty, and I would come out of the porta potty, and there's a line of 250 people wanting my autograph, which was very complimentary.
Sure.
But
this was before the days of Purell, and you had to shake all their hands after coming out of the John.
With my wife into Gettysburg to sit down and have dinner, and I couldn't have dinner.
Yeah.
I mean, in between every bite, it was nice, but after 3 days, I was ready to go home.
Sure.
I said that it's nice. I appreciate it. I never was rude to anybody. Of course, I that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But a daily diet of that, as if you were a celebrity,
right?
means
so it's good to have in small doses.
You can't go out to the market by yourself. You can't, without people. That's not.
Yeah, I was getting jealous of you because I'm standing there like an idiot and nobody's recognizing me. At the visitor center last night, I told a girl came up to me and she goes, "What? Nobody wants to talk to you?" And I go, "I'm like, you know what? The funny thing is, they don't even recognize me." And she like stares into my face to see if she can recognize me, and I extend my hand and she shakes it, and I go, "Sam Elliott."
You're going to get in trouble for doing that kind of thing.
I know.
I think it's very endearing, that people love the film so much, and it's nice to be recognized for your work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
People get excited about it, and that's wonderful.
And still,
all these years later, people are still excited.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It's just it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's 25 years ago.
I know.
Come on. And for people on my trip here, at the airport, someone came. I don't know how in the hell they recognized me. I don't look that much like her or whatever. This person wasn't coming here. Didn't know about this event. Came up and started out. We should have gone to the ride, and that's really sweet.
Yeah.
I love that.
Sure.
That made me feel good.
Yeah.
But that's just out of the blue.
I've had people come up to me and go, just out of the blue, say, we've got flapjacks in small mountains, right? And I'm like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's
Yeah, I asked Pete this morning to rub my feet, and he said, I do this under protest.
But I didn't do it.
But he didn't do
And he
it.
didn't do it either.
Right.
Well, all right, so what's going on with you guys now? Bo, you're directing. Mm-hmm. All right. You were on recently Sleepy Hollow, Patrick.
Yeah, briefly, I had like 4 episodes. Interesting character, but they didn't develop it. And unfortunately, I was only did 4 episodes. I played.
Were you in the first episode?
Yeah.
You were.
Reverend Knapp. I love that one historical thing, the one scene where Ichabod Crane has been picked up by the police, and he's driving down the street, and he looks off at the church, and they see this priest or minister talking to the flock, and there's this look between us, and then there's a flashback to my character in revolutionary times. I'm a churchman then. In other words, the idea is that, oops, is this the ghost of?
Okay.
It was an interesting character because my character was in the flashbacks of revolutionary period and modern. And that was interesting, and it had a lot of possibilities, but they didn't develop it because they developed the monsters and the whatever.
Did you get beheaded?
Yes, I did. I did get beheaded, awesome. And then, but I had my head sewn back on.
Sewn back on?
And in the cemetery, I had a reaction with, in other words, he wasn't there. My character was a warlock.
Okay.
So that's a male witch.
Yeah.
And it could have been developed, but it wasn't developed.
Right.
But anyway, that was
okay.
my Sleepy Hollow experience.
All right.
I had a weird detour in life.
Okay.
After Gods and Generals, when I was doing Gods and Generals, I met a guy who was his father was a friend of Ron Maxwell's, and he did documentary work covering the Civil War in Sudan. So it was right before 9/11, and he had just gotten back, and he said, there's some things that are going to happen here. He said, we don't know what it is, but there's a lot of bad stuff headed our way. And I'm like, really? Like what? And he's like, well, he told me about this leader in Afghanistan that was fighting bin Laden that had been assassinated, and he was all this. There's a lot of stuff. He had, he had connections to the intelligence world, mm-hmm. and he said, there's something's happening. We have no idea what's going to happen, but it's things are. There's a lot of talk on the airwaves. There's a lot of chatter, and it's something's going to go on. He told me this like right before 9/11. Mm-hmm. So when 9/11 happened, I called him and I said, "Wow, I can't believe." And so we talked about it, and I was so interested in what was going on in the Middle East and everything, and with the whole bin Laden thing. Out of the blue, a few weeks after that, he called me and said, "Do you want to help me shoot some documentaries in Sudan?" So I did.
Wow. Oh, really?
And I got kind of hooked into it. And for the next almost 10 years, I spent a lot of time in Kenya and Sudan. And I lived in Sudan, in Juba, for, I don't know, from 2009 to almost 2011. And,
wow. What's that like?
Well, let's see. I
You
lived
could
in
write a book on that.
I lived in a Sears tool shed with a cement floor and a cot. And I went to the bathroom in a hole and showered off with the hose, and it was rough. I loved it. A lot of times, earlier than that, when I was in Kenya, we would fly into Sudan and we would record atrocities. What it was, there was a comprehensive peace plan in action that Bush was doing, and there was a ceasefire. But the Janjaweed and were still raising villages and killing people. So a lot of times we'd go in and just record violations of the ceasefire. And then,
So you're actually witnessing these things happening, or the aftermath?
Aftermath.
Now, so does that stick with you? I'm sure it does, right? I mean, that's got to be kind of disturbing.
Well, it was disturbing, but it's weird because it's like such another life.
Yeah.
It's just like I kind of compartmentalize everything. But yeah, I saw a lot of bad stuff over there.
I bet.
And then I kind of segued into the malaria issues that they're having. After seeing a couple of little kids die, death is just so much a part of the life in Africa, on that continent.
Yeah.
But I loved living in Kenya and Sudan. But Sudan is a different world. Kenya is a huge country, city. Nairobi's a huge city with great restaurants, and it's great there. Sudan is the wild, wild west. We were in places where you were literally 1,000 square miles or 1,000 miles away from a electric light bulb. Where you look out over like in the Nuba Mountains at the time, you could look out. It reminded me of Star Wars with just torches for as far as the eye can see. Were campfires and torches, no electric lights.
Wow. So and are these works available the way you shot, or were you doing this for it's through the organization. It's Persecution Project Foundation. Okay.
So, I was just assisting and helping my friend Brad, who's doing great work out there still to this day. I just talked to him a week ago, I still have the yearning to go back. I haven't been back since I went to visit in 2013 or 2013, but I started missing the business.
Yeah.
And
the creative side of the business.
The creative side. In 2011, I shot a film based on one act that I wrote, and we did okay with it, and then and I went back for a little bit, and then I came back to the States again, and we did the movie Last Man Club. It was in the theaters in 2016, and it's on Amazon Prime right now. It's called Last Man Club. It's about 4 World War II veterans at the end of their lives.
General Trimble is playing a part in that.
Yes, as a matter of fact.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Morgan Shepherd is in it, and he was in he was in the last 2 films I directed. Well, no, I have one coming out called Bay House that he wasn't in, but yeah, he was in both of those films and did such a fantastic job, and we had a great time.
So that's a common thing, right? Where you work with someone on something and you go, "Hey, I got another thing."
I met Morgan on Gettysburg, and he and I became really close friends. We're still close friends. He unfortunately couldn't make it.
I hadn't talked to him. I should have been meaning to call him. I know Michelle fell in love with him on Last Man Club, and
well, he does. Trimble's got one of the. He's got some memorable stuff.
That great operatic scene.
Yeah,
him throwing down his sword.
Yeah, down on the ground.
Yeah, no, I have a little brief bit of trivia on that scene.
He said nothing.
But the story behind that is that they did 3 or 4 takes of that. It's an aria. It's from the film, and the interesting thing was. And he tells this story too, is that there was one point where he actually went up. That is, he couldn't remember the next line because it was a very emotional thing. And he, as a good actor, he covered it and played through. Nobody would tell. And because I was in the cutting room in North Hollywood when they did that, and that's the take they used. Well, all the takes were good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the one take where he went up was so, it was also doubly loaded because personally, as an actor, he was
worked
crazy,
up.
but he didn't It didn't show that, but it was the right feeling for that scene.
Was it where he kind of pauses and takes a breath and almost starts again? And
it could be. I don't. I would have to see it.
You mentioned the cutting room. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the cutting and the editing.
I have a question about that. I read somewhere that when they were editing Armistead's death scene, or when he gets shot before he dies, they received the news that Richard Jordan had just died. Is that true?
I don't know.
Wait.
I don't know.
So they were editing Armistead.
Oh, yeah. No. Let's see. I think he died a year after we shot the film. So
it had already been edited.
It had?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Amazon Prime, your trivia is wrong.
I couldn't swear. I'll
have to ask Ron about that.
Yeah.
But, when we were good friends with Richard, and I know it had to have been afterwards, because I'll tell you why. We had a little cast party at Ron's house, and that was the last time I saw Richard, and it was really great because he was laughing and having such a good time. And then a few days later, we found out that he had a tumor. Mm-hmm. And then after the operation, I wanted to go see him, and I talked to Ron. He says, no one, he's not receiving visitors. He's just, puttering around in his rose garden, and just
because he couldn't as an actor he couldn't remember anything. That was one of the things he couldn't to do that.
He was a real Renaissance man. I mean, he really truly was. He was very intelligent, a Yale graduate.
Yeah, I think so.
He's just a really incredible guy.
Well, what I thought was interesting is last night we were at the Dobbin House dinner, right? And Andrew Prine, right, was there?
Yeah.
And so I Googled him. I mean, I know he played Garnet, but I wanted to see what else he did. And he's uncredited, but he was in Rooster Cogburn with John Wayne. Mm-hmm. So was Richard Jordan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then they're both in Gettysburg. I like things like that, like the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon type stuff.
Each other since like the like 71 or
when I came
late
back
60s,
from
early
Paris
70s
in 1965 or there. One of the first plays I saw, I started out at the New York Shakespeare Festival, and he was in the APA company as a young actor, just starting. He was, and I remember getting to see him. I thought, this young guy he's really good. And so I met him once, but I had no until we did Gettysburg, which was many, many years later. But he was, wonderful.
He had this chateau in Malibu that was from the 20s, and it had like 2.5 feet thick stone walls that had lived through all the fires, and it was this beautiful place. It was like, and he had this rose garden on the top of this large patio, and he would just putter around out there and clip his roses and listen to the classical music like, with this beautiful view, and I'm like, dude, you have the life.
Yeah, really.
He had just made his own little world there, Richard Jordan is definitely missed.
Yeah,
but I don't believe check with Ron Maxwell on that.
I'll ask him tonight.
Yeah, because now I'm wondering if that was true.
Yeah, well, if it's not true, then Amazon Prime's little trivia thing that they have there when you watch the movies, got it wrong.
Because I got the call.
Well,
from Ron
they get
died.
some things.
No,
wrong.
I know
they do. It's come on. It's that happens.
Yeah. Now, so you both worked with, Martin Sheen, Robert Duvall. You mentioned, Patrick, that Duvall was like one of your heroes.
Yeah, he was. Very much.
Was Gods and Generals the first time you worked with him?
Yeah, I hardly say I had a couple scenes.
But you were like
I didn't feel like I worked with him.
Right.
I was
stood
in
by
a couple
him.
of scenes.
Yeah. But what's it? I mean, that's got to be because not everybody gets to meet their heroes, right?
Well, here's the thing. For me, I only can speak for myself. Since I've been in the business literally my whole life, and I'm used to meeting famous people, I'm not starstruck. I certainly respect them, but I don't have this losing my tongue or anything about it. So I don't have.
And is it a different type of feeling because you're at work?
Well,
so you don't have time for that?
When you're playing with a famous actor and you're not famous, you can't defer to them because they're famous, because in the scene you might be my enemy, You might be my brother. You might be somebody I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't let that interfere with your work. And it never has with me.
I've never thought about it. I mean,
but a lot of people do. And even
Yeah.
I've met young actors who are in awe of, I says, I understand you're in awe of him, but you can't be in awe of him in the scene because that's not who you are in the scene.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and I guess like you worked early in your career. You worked with Judy Garland and Sammy Davis. These are big people.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, yeah. I was in musical comedy. I was a dancer. That's how I grew up. My brother was a dancer.
Yeah.
And those stories of starting out as
Right. So yeah. So you've
a born
kinda,
character man playing a 70-year-old at the age of 4. You know.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I worked with an endless number of stars. I toured with Judy Garland, and then I danced with Sammy Davis and Donald O'Connor, and on and on. I mean, really a lot of people.
Yeah. All right. Well, so do you guys have websites or anything where people can go and follow you, or Instagram? Patrick, you have Instagram.
I have a website.
You have a website? What?
I hate social media. I really just don't care. I have a Facebook. I have 2 Facebook pages, but I have a secretary that it handles most of it.
All right. Well, so we got what do we got here?
Well, I've got a Facebook site. I got because of the civil. I blame the Civil War reenactors. No, I don't blame them. It was nice.
Yeah.
I remember years ago, someone after the first reenactment I did, it says, you got to put your picture, you got to get on Facebook. And I said, what? I said, and finally okay. He says, people want to get, so I got on it. And right away it filled up. I mean, I maxed out the 5,000, but they're mostly reenactors. So I do have a website, but I never look at it. www.patrickgormanonline.com.
PatrickGormanOnline.com, and then you have Facebook with your Patrick Gorman.
Yeah.
All right, and then no social for you, no website even, no website.
No, nothing. I am such a slob.
He's a recluse.
Yeah, really.
I'm just really bad.
If you want to see him, watch the movie.
I guess you're gonna have to watch the movies.
I mean, I have like Bo Brinkman at Facebook. I have two sites.
And I do have 2 sites.
I occasionally look at them, and not very often. I have somebody that runs my website.
He's a director.
Yes,
not only is he an actor, but he's a director and a writer. So that's a little different animal than me.
Do you have anything in the works where you have like roles for 2 podcasters?
Listen, everybody winds up in my movies eventually.
See, I haven't yet.
Don't say that, because I'm going to be sitting around waiting.
I'm sitting here looking at you going, I wonder if there's something for you in Goat Hill Road.
I look a little bit like a
we always find, I do.
Absolutely.
I'm good about that.
I could do pratfalls.
The last,
if you have anything where somebody needs to fall down.
The last acting job I did was just an invitation kind of thing. It was I played a cop opposite Shane Black.
Oh yeah,
and that was me and Shane did this movie called Swing State that came out last year, I believe.
Wait a second, I think I saw that.
Swing State.
What's it about?
About this guy that's a radio guy that has he's liberal, but he poses as a real conservative, hardcore dude. And it's just kind of it's funny. It's got a lot of actors in it. Billy Zane's in it, and
I saw this.
And then me and Shane play two cops. And when the guy comes in, who's the guy from? I can't remember his name. He did. He played the serial killer in Silence of the Lambs. Great actor.
Wait, Buffalo Bill?
Yeah.
I know
Westworld. He's in Westworld.
He's awesome. Anyway, he's in it, and he comes in all bloody. And they stage this murder kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's really kind of funny. It's funny, fun little.
Wait, Buffalo Bill or Hannibal Lecter?
No, Buffalo Bill.
Buffalo Bill.
Oh, okay. Anthony Hopkins.
What's his name?
Look him up, Pete.
He was in a show. Solid dude. I love.
I know his name. It's Pete's looking it up
We're
right now.
all showing our age here.
Yeah, no kidding.
I can't remember his name either, but I know who you mean.
We've got people working on it.
Yeah,
Ted Levine.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Jane
Terrific.
Buffalo Bill Gum.
Great actor, man. He's so good.
Well, and didn't you fence the Fonz?
Yes, I did. That,
Yeah, and clearly the Fonz wasn't the bad guy.
You're an accomplished.
Well, I'm a martial artist, and I learned fencing. Really for stage. You know, in the early days in film and television, if they didn't have stunt doubles as much,
right?
They had them, of course. Now there are rules; you have to have a stunt double. Even when Gods and Generals that was in, but early on, if you could do the fights, because I had acrobatic skills and everything, so I could do stair falls and. I did some horse falls too as a stunt person, but I was never really a bona fide stunt guy. I was an actor who could do the physical stuff, and that helped me get jobs. Now it's not the same. Even in Gods and Generals, I have this scene where Hood's watching the Battle of Antietam, and one of the aides comes from Duval, from General Lee, and he gallops up and slides and delivers his message, and all I'm doing is sitting there on my horse watching the battle. It comes time to shoot. The stunt man says, "Well, we'll have to have a." I said, "Well,
stunt double sit there."
I had to replace me.
In case
the horse. I says, "Well, if he slides into me, I'll just move my." No, but we. So, you know, but back in the day, that didn't happen.
Right.
You stayed on the horse.
You got a broken leg if it happened, like, you know.
Yes.
You just had to live with it. Well, all right. So, Bo Brinkman, thank you very much.
Yes.
Patrick Gorman, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was
pleasure.
a real thrill to talk to you guys and hang out last night. And
we'll
very
see you
cool
tonight.
of you. We'll see you tonight. And
we'll see that movie again tonight.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. I'm sorry.
Sure.
I didn't think it was going to take this long.
I'm sorry it took so long.
Michelle,
I'm so sorry.
It's always informative. Very interesting. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Good to see you. Keep me in mind, guys.